লাইভ করে দিলাম কিন্তু। এই স্ক্রিন তো কখন
Fine. Nice. Yes. There's one up there. Okay. I'm fine. Yeah, right now. Hopefully not. If I don't follow certain things, if you know, yeah, I feel like I can hear or get exhausted. Yeah, because the bacteria never leave your system. So, not kind of like in fact, that's what they call it. So right now it's good. Wow. They have your mRNA vaccine. Oh, curative, that I don't know. Yeah, I haven't. Interesting. Hello, hello. Mataji, I'm going to start. Hare Mane Gago Rama Krishna Nam Sri Rama Krishna Nam Sri Rama Krishna Nam Prem Hare Mane Gago Rama Krishna Nam Sri Rama Krishna Nam Sri Rama Krishna Nam Antare Jatoni Rako Mone Ravana Antare Jatoni Rako Mone Ravana Dino Kamale Rudhanu Rama Krishna Nam Dino Kamale Rudhanu Rama Krishna Nam Sri Rama Krishna Nam Sri Rama Krishna Nam Eti Brinde Purti Lore Radha Krishna Sham Eti Brinde Purti Lore Radha Krishna Sham Shiva Kali Brahma Vishnu Shama Shitala Shiva Kali Brahma Vishnu Shama Shitala Sri Rama Krishna Nam Sri Rama Krishna Nam Prema Mane Gago Rama Krishna Nam Sri Rama Krishna Nam Sri Rama Krishna Nam Nam Brahma Yati Mone Gago Nam Janma Marana Shakti Rama Krishna Nam Nama Brahma Yati Jene Mone Gavana Janma Marana Shakti Rama Krishna Nam Sri Rama Krishna Nam Sri Rama Krishna Nam Prema Hare Mane Gago Rama Krishna Nam Sri Rama Krishna Nam Sri Rama Krishna Nam Sri Rama Krishna Nam Sri Rama Krishna Nam Rama Krishna Jaya, Rama Krishna Jaya, Parama Guru Jaya Jaya Bhagavan. Rama Krishna Jaya, Rama Krishna Jaya, Parama Guru Jaya Jaya Bhagavan. Sharada Ma Jaya, Sharada Ma Jaya, Parama Mata Jaya Jaya Ma. Sharada Ma Jaya, Sharada Ma Jaya, Parama Mata Jaya Jaya Ma. Swami Ji Jaya Shiva, Swami Ji Jaya Shiva, Vivekananda Jaya Shiva Jaya. Swami Ji Jaya Shiva, Swami Ji Jaya Shiva, Vivekananda Jaya Shiva Jaya. Rama Krishna Jaya, Rama Krishna Jaya, Parama Guru Jaya Jaya Bhagavan. Rama Krishna Jaya, Rama Krishna Jaya, Parama Guru Jaya Jaya Bhagavan. Sharada Ma Jaya, Sharada Ma Jaya, Parama Mata Jaya Jaya Ma. Sharada Ma Jaya, Sharada Ma Jaya, Parama Mata Jaya Jaya Ma. Swami Ji Jaya Shiva, Swami Ji Jaya Shiva, Vivekananda Jaya Shiva Jaya. Swami Ji Jaya Shiva, Swami Ji Jaya Shiva, Vivekananda Jaya Shiva Jaya. Rama Krishna Jaya, Rama Krishna Jaya, Parama Guru Jaya Jaya Bhagavan. Rama Krishna Jaya, Rama Krishna Jaya, Parama Guru Jaya Jaya Bhagavan. Rama Krishna Jaya, Rama Krishna Jaya, Parama Guru Jaya Jaya Bhagavan.
Namaskar everyone. We have amongst us Mata Gitaprana. She will be visiting us for the first time. If you know that Ridgely Manor, where Vivekananda stayed in the last time in 1899, and it is under Ramakrishna Mission now. She is in charge of that center. You're welcome to visit there. But today we will be directly hearing from her on Divine Mother. Through all our lives, we have various difficulties to move, and we would like to get some blessings and wisdom from Gitaprana. Thank you and welcome to our Connecticut Center. We want to see you more often.
Let's see. I'm gonna have to bend over that way. What's with all this sitting in the back?
Yes.
Is this working?
Yes.
Very good.
Water?
There's some here. Well, all right. If you can't hear me, let me know. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahabhiryam Karavavahai Tejasvina Vadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So I think I know most of you off and on from visits to Ridgely, or in the case of some people from way, way, way back when in Hollywood. And and places in between. So very nice to see you all. This is indeed the first time I've been to this center. It's not because I haven't wanted to come, but the situation in the last few years has not been ideal, either because of the pandemic or things going on at Ridgely. If you know something about Ridgely Manor, you know that there's, we could say it's a little bit of a challenge to keep it running. And some of those challenges are in the form of malfunctions in old buildings, and some are in the form of weather, and there's always something coming up. And so it's not always so easy for me to get away, but it is easy for you to visit. And all you have to do is give us a call, and you'll probably get shoot out in Prana and kind of tell her when you'd like to come. And she usually, if you want a tour, she usually will give you the tour. She's really, really good at it. And we have other events. We're coming back into our full schedule since the pandemic. So we're trying to have like an organized retreat once a month if the speaker doesn't forget and schedule himself somewhere else. And we have also Durga Puja, a small Durga Puja, and a big Kali Puja. So those are the events coming up. We have a couple events that are coming up that I can't announce yet. One, to give you a hint, a speaker who is so famous that if I announced now, it would be full in an hour. So that's coming up soon. And other than that, you can just simply come.
You could educate us with a little bit of the immenseness of Ridgely.
Immenseness?
Yeah, because people hardly do not know that 80-acre land.
Oh, okay. So
managing.
Ridgely is, who hasn't been there? Because if you have, then you know. Okay, so Ridgely is what's left of the estate of the Leggett family. The original Frank Leggett was a friend of Swami Vivekananda, and Swami Vivekananda visited there 3 times. In 1899, he visited there for almost 3 months, the longest place he'd ever visited in the United States. So the current retreat is 80 acres with 3 big Victorian houses, 2 of which are converted into overnight houses for people who want to stay overnight. One for the women, one for the men. And the third one, the manor house, which is the famous one that you see in the pictures, it is almost virtually untouched from the time of Swami Vivekananda. So there are many things to see and many stories, and that's also where our shrine is. So we have many, many local people who just use our shrine every day. We open the center at 6 in the morning, we close it at 7 o'clock, and people just come and go all the time. And have morning and evening meditation, but nothing like a regular center. We're trying to keep it a little bit like Mayavati Advaita Ashram. We don't have pujas there except for a few special ones. And we don't do a real arati or anything like that. Just pure meditation. And if you want to stay there, then there are places unless it's already filled, to stay for a couple days, 3 days. But so mostly people come if we're having an organized retreat, or just if they want to do, as Sri Ramakrishna said, go into solitude now and then. That's what Ridgely is set up for.
And it's being managed by how many?
Me, it's being managed by me.
How many people love you?
Right, no, right, there are me and 4 others right now.
And 80 acres of land.
Yeah, so, and none of us are spring chickens, young either.
Question, does the Veda teaching still go on, the discourses?
Does the what?
The Vedic, the teachings and the practice, there was a room which was dedicated for those discourses, I guess.
Yes,
Yes.
they still go on.
Okay.
So, we lost our local audience during the pandemic. And so we haven't really set up our traditional Sunday morning class quite correctly yet. So Ridgely's classes are on Zoom mostly. But we are using that room for organized retreats. So the next one that we have is Swami Ogatmananda will be at Ridgely over the Saturday and Sunday of Labor Day weekend, talking about Meister Eckhart. And staying overnight is filling up fast. But if you want to just come for the day, we are not going to limit how many people. And you can find this information by going to our website, ridgely.org, and most of it is there. And if you don't see it there, then you can sign yourself up to our newsletter on the front page, which is much easier and more quickly done than us getting around to doing it for you. So, all right, so now I have to switch my mind.
Yes.
The Divine Mother, I don't really, but this is a talk that I've given many times, and so I always give it a little bit differently depending on where I am and what I'm thinking about. But when I'm going to talk about Divine Mother, as if you're going to talk about any other philosophy, or because it's slightly different than the Vedanta that we're possibly accustomed to. The first thing that I always say is, remember Sri Ramakrishna saying, all words are uchishta. So what uchishta means is they're defiled. That they're not going to actually produce, or, well, it's difficult to say, but the one divine reality is beyond all namarupa, name and form, meaning beyond all conceptualization, all language. So sometimes you think name, well, we mean that's just words, but what we mean here is all structures of mind, right? That everything that we experience is through concepts. Some possibly are innate, most of them we learned. And all that, the divine reality is beyond. So we can use concepts, and even our notion of God, say a form, a God with form, even our notion of God with form is understand through concepts. As Swami Vivekananda said, what did he say? A buffalo will conceive of God as a giant buffalo, because that's its experience. Humans will conceive of God possibly as an anthropomorphic figure, because that's our experience. And this is not wrong, but it comes under the, it again is nothing but structures of mind. All philosophies are structures of mind. Anything that anybody could ever say about the divine is a structure of mind. So not necessarily bad, but nevertheless, Brahman, or in the case of the Shakta world, more commonly called Shiva, is beyond all that. So we can take help of philosophies, we take help of forms, we take help of words, but we have to remember that these are just simply helps for mind to rise to a level where mind ultimately drops away and the source is perceived. And I'm saying this because there are so many different philosophical systems that like to battle with each other. And then people get the idea that somehow there's a right one and a wrong one, and it all falls down into this structure of words. But the reality is beyond all that, beyond anything that we conceive of. So it's a framework of concepts that we work through. So I'm going to say that in the Shakta world, as Sri Ramakrishna said, Kali and Brahman, or Kali and Shiva, are not different. Or we can say Kali as in the Divine Mother and Shiva standing in for Brahman are one. Like milk and its power, milk and its lightness, and fire and its power to burn. I seem to be losing my voice. So ultimately, Brahman and Shakti, of course, as probably most of you know, it comes from a Sanskrit root, shak, to be able. So power is a word that can be derived from the root to be able. So Shakti, the power of Brahman. Now here's where the philosophy differs. And right now in the Vedanta circles, there are two kind of separate descriptions of philosophical descriptions that seem to be on the surface contradictory, but they're not. And one of them, of course, is Shankara's Advaita Vedanta, the non-dual Advaita, non-dual Vedanta of Shankara. And the other one, currently being called more commonly by some people, Vijnana Vedanta, ascribed often to Sri Ramakrishna. And the Shakta world prefers Vijnana Vedanta. So let me describe, I don't want to go into, you can listen to Swami Sarvapriyananda's fantastic lectures on Advaita Vedanta if you want to go into a very sophisticated description of what that philosophy is. But let us just say there's both systems, both Advaita Vedanta and Vijnana Vedanta, are non-dual systems. Brahman and Shakti, in other words, Brahman and Kali, Brahman and the Divine Mother, are not two. They are the same. They're inseparable. But they do differ. Shankara's non-dualism describes, and remember, describes, it's words, describes Brahman as, and you've heard it all, infinite, etc. It's all knowing, etc., 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 unchanging. Here's the key. Brahman does not change in this non-dual tradition, in Shankara's non-dual tradition. So, okay, that's good and ultimately true, but that's not our experience. We live in a world that is changing every nanosecond. In fact, our world is nothing but change, continuously moving on every level, whether it's a level of nanoparticles, the cosmic level of the planets and stars, or the human level and the human body, or the energies that are physical energies informing all of this. Its very definition is it moves. In fact, the Sanskrit word jagat, which translates into English as world usually, is coming from a root that means to tremble, to move, to oscillate. So how do we resolve this if Brahman is unchanging, but our experience is moving? Shankara says, well, our world is ultimately a superimposition on Brahman. It's an atyasa, a superimposition, and actually Brahman never changed, and all of this is like a dream. That there is no changing ultimately. And the goal in that, I mean, super simplifying the system. Really listen to Swami Sarvapriyananda and other speakers if you want to know. The goal through that system, through that Advaitic system, that spiritual practice, is to see through the mere appearance of this world. That this world, Brahman never changed, right? Brahman does not change. Brahman never changed. This is only an appearance. The Shakta Vijnana Vedantins have a slightly different view. And okay, when I say Shakta world, that's a whole talk in itself, but suffice it to say that there's more or less 3 centers in India of the Shakta world. And one is in the north with what is called Kashmir Shaivism, and also sharing with the Tibetan Buddhist world, and in Nepal, where the Shakta tradition is both Buddhist and Hindu. And then another one is, of course, in the area around Bengal, where the Shakta tradition, the Shaivite tradition, is kind of seen to have married a little bit of Chaitanya's Gaudiya Vaishnavism. So Bengal has its own special way of looking at the Shakta world. And then the third one, of course, is in South India, and the Sri Vidya tradition, which has many, many, many streams. So all of these have many, many schools. So there isn't one humongous homogeneous Shakta tradition. There, as you know, there's nothing homogeneous in any of the Sanatana Dharma. So, and that's its greatness. In the Shakta world, Brahman or Shiva is unlimited, which means if you, and this is my kind of synopsized version, you cannot say that Brahman is not something, right? Here's how words and concepts get into it. If you say Brahman cannot change, you by very definition are limiting the concept of Brahman. There is nothing that Brahman, also known as Shiva, cannot do or be. So therefore, Brahman can and does change. And so as contrasted to Shankara, who says this world is an adhyasa, it's only a superimposition. It's a vivarta, it's an appearance. In the Shakta tradition, they say this world is a parinama. It's actually real. And it's a transformation of the one, a deliberate transformation of the one. And when we speak of the one in terms of Brahman, we call it Brahman or Shiva. But when we speak of the world as moving and being coming into being and lasting a while and being destroyed again and being recreated over and over again, we call that Shakti or Mother. So this is where the tradition of the Divine Mother arises. In that notion, Brahman and Kali are one. Or call it any, you could call it Raja, Rajeshwari, you can call it any of the names of the Divine Mother in any of the parts of India. So what does that mean for our life? If we are going to, it's a little bit of a different spiritual practice, although they really don't have anything. They meet in the end, as all the philosophies do. The philosophers love to argue with each other, but in the end, it always comes back to the one Satchidananda, the existence, the one that is existence itself, the one that is consciousness itself, the one that is bliss itself. So if the world is a parinama, in other words, a deliberate transformation, and that means this world is nothing other than the mother herself. Everything, every single thing is nothing other than the mother herself being and becoming as us, as all things. So we're not some kind of cast out into samsara. This is the difference. There is a sense of Maya in the Shakta world. It's slightly different than in the Advaita Vedanta of Shankara's world. The Advaita Vedanta of Shankara, all of this appearance, that's Maya. That, by the way, if you don't know, originally the word Maya, and this would make sense if you think about it, comes from a Sanskrit root, ma, to measure. And what is it about this world? We experience it, and everything we're doing is measuring with our senses. And this is, in Shankara's world, the Maya is that we see it at all, perceive it at all. In the Shakta world, the Maya is that, not that we perceive it, because this world is a real transformation of the mother, but that we perceive difference. That ultimately it's all her, but we don't see that. Just as we don't see the world as being infinite, undivided, etc., we don't see, we see the world, here I am, and here is everything out here. And there's a separation there. That's the Maya. That's the avidya. That's the unknowingness that's at the root of this. This is not our fault. This is a metaphysical, ontological condition. So everything that arises from that separation, there's me, there's mine, there's you, there's yours, there's this, there's that, there's time, there's space, and everything that comes from it. So the Shakta goal is not to tell yourself this is all unreal and what I just need to do is leave it. The Shakta goal is to see the divine in every moment. And of course, Sri Ramakrishna often was the perfect teacher for any of these philosophies, really, but he was definitely the perfect example of this vijnana. This is what he called it, this idea that one can perceive the divine in this very world. Not in some kind of bodiless nirvikalpa samadhi state, but in this world itself. And often he demonstrated that in his life. And seems to have taught Swami Vivekananda specifically this kind of philosophy. And often Swami Vivekananda would talk about it. In the West, he didn't talk about it in necessarily philosophical terms, but he was talking. When he would say, excuse me, if I look at a chair, first I see God and then I see the chair. That our goal as people who practice parinama kind of Advaita is to see in every moment the divine residing there, the mother. The mother is as obviously the creative powers of femininity. The mother is seen as the creatrix. The mother is seen as the one who sustains. And the mother, of course, is seen as the destroyer as well. And so the mother has, I'm switching now from philosophical more to the other side. The mother in this philosophy has deliberately become everything consciously. What does that mean for us? It means she deliberately was born as us. And it is no one other than her looking through our mind at the world that we experience. And so our sadhana in this tradition is to overcome that sense of separation and literally become that mother looking through our own eyes. And our consciousness expanded to that divine consciousness that truly is at the root. So we are not a mistake. We are not necessarily in the really, radical Shakta traditions and some of the tantric traditions. They don't have a conception of moksha, liberation, because it's not the logical conclusion for this philosophy. If everything is the mother, why do I want to leave it? If this is samsara, if this samsara is nothing other than her, why am I trying to get out? That the heroic mode of this kind of sadhana is to say, I don't care for that. What I care for is to experience that consciousness of the mother for myself. And beginning with traditional kinds of sadhanas, with spiritual practices, and ending with, say, for instance, the example of Sri Ramakrishna or Swami Vivekananda, both who had these moments where their own small self disappeared and there was nothing. They saw the world as nothing but divine, literally. So if that's the case, why would you want to get out? So they will often say, one thing I should tell you is that when I lived in Los Angeles, I had a lot of Shakta friends, and many of them were of this kind of tantric, why would you want moksha if this is nothing but the mother idea? And they would say, you Vedantins, you just want to escape. You're just a bunch of escapists. And the Vedantins would say, you Tantrikas, you just want to have your cake and eat it too. But ultimately, the sadhana is pretty much the same. If we're not talking about Shankara's sadhana of Shravana, Marana, Yasana, but the formal sadhana is japa, repetition of mantras, dhyana, meditation, and puja, worship. And actually, in the tantric world, pujas includes both japa and dhyana as well. So the project of that kind of spiritual practice is extremely sophisticated and would take, in our Shakta class that we do online in Zoom, it took a whole year to even get through the basic Shakta sadhanas in any kind of way that gave them credit, did them good service. But if you are going to see the universe as nothing other than the mother, then you will be possibly familiar with the idea as above, so below. That the same Shakti, the very same energies that create the universe, the physical laws or whatever they may be, that are obviously far beyond human understanding still, that operate the multiverses, the infinite kinds of life, from that to the smallest particles, from the human body to the celestial bodies, all operate on the same patterns. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with this, that this is how a lot of astrology happens, because the idea is the same divine patterns are reflected in iterations in every way and form in the manifestation. So the goal of some of these sadhanas is to take some of these iterations and lead them back to the source in our own mind. In the social world, you'll find Sri Ramakrishna demonstrating, as you may know, Sri Ramakrishna in his sadhana period went through many kinds of different spiritual practices, and some of them were tantric spiritual practices, and his guru is the Brahmani Bhairavi, the Bhairavi who is a Brahmin. And many of the tantric practices involve taking elements of the world that we might be socialized to think of as good or bad or pure and impure, and understanding that these are conceptual. So you see in Sri Ramakrishna's life, he is cleaning the latrines with his hair. Or he takes, at least in Swami Nikhilananda's gospel, he takes money in one hand and mud in the other. And the translation is mud is rupee and rupee is mud. These are not inventions of his. These are actually part of the tantric sadhanas. The idea is to see the divine residing not only in the wonderful things, but also in the terrible things. And as you know, many of the forms of the Divine Mother are not necessarily sweet. Yes, you come from Bengal, you should know this if you do. Or South India, for that matter. That you have, although I have never figured this out, but you have beautiful, sweet forms of the Divine Mother when we're talking about the kinds of images that people use in their spiritual practice, like Lakshmi, like Tripura Sundari Lalita, like, not that Tara, like the Buddhist Tara. Nice, what they call Soumya, beautiful, sweet mothers. But on the other hand, even those sweet mothers often are holding some kind of implement in their hand that's not so sweet. And on the other hand, you have the Ugra mothers, the Karala mothers, the Chandi mothers, of which Kali is the first and foremost. And some of those South Indian deities will give Kali a run for her money, but some of them are Kali, like Bhagavati of Kerala. And or Akhilendeshwari, that those mothers are portrayed more in their destructive aspect. That the power of creation, the power of preservation, the power of destruction, we want to see it in everything. So we don't just see it in beautiful shrines and holy places, we see it in destruction. We see it in war. We see it in illness. We see it in death, as well as, but hopefully not to focus too much like that either, to see it as the mother is all of this, because we could start by seeing the mother in the decent things and the good things, but the ultimate sadhana for the Shakta Advaita is to see the mother in everything. See the mother in our arthritis, in our Lyme disease like me, or horrible kinds of things that go on in the world. That's the sadhana. That's the tricky part of the sadhana. It's very nice to see the nice mother and beautiful and yes, puja this, but can you see it in the challenges? Can you see her hand in things that you would rather not experience? And remember that who is experiencing these? Ultimately, it's her. She is playing at being us. I have some tantric friends from South India who, like Swami Brahmananda, like Sri Sharda Devi, the Holy Mother, had seen that the Balaji temple, in Andhra, Tirupati, originally was a Devi temple, a temple to the goddess, or at least at some point. I know both Swami Brahmananda and Sri Sharda Devi had seen that kind of in a almost visionary way. But in parts of South India, the Shakta community also remembers this. And they point out that Lord Balaji actually is wearing a sari in the South Indian style. And the reason why the Murti has camphor painted over their face is they're hiding the fact that it used to be female. And this is their idea, and is worshipped on the days that would ordinarily be set aside for the worship of the Divine Mother in a traditional way. But so they say, okay, when we go see Lord Balaji, and the name Bala, which actually in Sanskrit means little girl. And in the Sri Vidya tradition of South India, when they are taught puja, they are not just taught puja of Raja Rajeshwari, the Queen of Queens, first. They are taught first Ganesha, then Bala Raja Rajeshwari, Bala Tripura Sundari, the little girl. Then when their guru decides that they're adept enough at those kinds of things, then they're taught the worship of Tripura Sundari, Lalita. So the name Bala. So they say, yeah, we go to the Balaji temple. And the way we see it is this: all forms are forms of the mother. And you will hear poems like this. You, oh mother, you gave Rama and Krishna their form, because any form is her form. So he said, yeah, we go to see Balaji. And what we figure is, for reasons of her own, the mother is playing at being Vishnu. So when we go to that Vishnu temple, we both salute Vishnu and we salute the mother, who has currently decided that she's playing at being Vishnu there, and we don't know why. So like that actually shows a view of someone who is practicing seeing everything as the mother. That she's not somewhere else. She's not something that we need to achieve. In fact, any kind of spiritual practice, any kind of thing we do is not to achieve something. Because in Vedanta, in this kind of Shakta tradition, we are that already. We don't need to buy our way into some kind of liberation. We already are that divine. That's the essence of Vedanta. Thou art that. Which, by the way, the Shakta world sometimes conforms to the Vedic teachings, and sometimes some of them are radically against it. But they have, as the Vedanta has the great sayings, the Mahavakyas, Tattvamasi, thou art that, Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman, I am Atma. I don't know all of them off the top of my head. There's 4 of them.
Yeah.
So,
yes.
Yeah. So the Shaktas also have a Mahavakya, and it comes from the Chandi, from the Devi Mahatmyam. And there is a point in the Chandi where, if you know anything about the Chandi, it's about the Mahadevi battling against certain demonic tendencies and demons. And in the last story like that, the demon Shumba, who typically will stand for the idea of me, I'm so great. And his brother Nishumba is, oh, I'm so awful, which is also me. So Shumba and his great army has failed to vanquish the Devi, and actually his brother is dead, his generals are all dead, etc., etc., etc. And the Devi in this story has manifested many other Shaktis, in other words, her own powers of this, that, and the other, to help fight the armies of me. And Shumba says to her, you're cheating. You're fighting with so many people, and I am just one. And you've got all your Shaktis, but I am just one. And the Mahavakya for the Shaktas is, Ekai Vaham Jagat Yatra. Eka Eva Aham Jagati Atra. Eka, one. Eva, alone. Aham, I am. Jagati, in this world. Atra, here. I am the only one here in this world. That's the Mahavakya for the Shaktas, some of them at any rate. That there is only Shakti. There's only the mother. Everything, our knives, our forks, our flowers, our life, our children, our cars, is nothing other than her playing at being us. And why do we say playing? It's more like experiencing. So when Brahman in this philosophy is manifest, it's manifest infinitely, truly infinitely. And Swami Ashokananda, who used to be in San Francisco, used to remind his devotees all the time, infinite is not a huge number, right? People think of infinite as being a huge number. It's not a number at all. It's outside of numeration. It's truly all-pervading. So the mother exists in infinity. The idea, I think, this is now my opinion, okay? Having spent a lifetime trying to figure out, asking, well, why? It's a useless question. But the idea is just to be, and to be infinitely. So, and we mean truly infinitely. So, that to be, just being, which to us often seems like our personal suffering, and why the heck is she doing this, is so infinite for her, so outside of time, so outside of space, that the language is getting kind of, difficult, that she perceives it in one moment. So imagine if our beginning and our liberation is seen in one moment by the mother, what suffering could there be? There could only be bliss. But for us, we don't see it that way. And our sadhana is to live our way into it through the life that we have. So in the remaining time, I can give you some examples of, we've done this before in our Ask the Sisters class on Sunday afternoons. When the life we have, not the life that we wish we had, whatever it may be, when we get up in the morning, and you will be familiar with some of these, Swami Swahananda used to do a lot of these things, that the first thing that we can do is make sure that something that we see some kind of holy picture, right? Put it in some such of a place next to our bed that when we wake up, we develop the habit of looking at that first. And the first thing out of our mouth is a mantra. So he did that. He had holy pictures, and occasionally we would have to call him up to wake him up because he didn't trust his alarm clock. And he would say, I'm not going to say anything except Jai Shri Ramakrishna, boom. And that's what he did. Because the very first thing that came out of his mouth was going to be a mantra. Then, supposing we go for our coffee or tea next, let's just say, we can spiritualize that. Remember, we kind of without making it a formal puja with all these purity rules required, just offer the coffee, see the mother is having the coffee to wake up her own mind, however we'd like to see it. In any way, it should be authentic to us. Not what somebody else says you have to do, but what it's authentic to us, or it won't be very effective. And then maybe we take a shower. I have a friend who kind of gets in the shower and thinks that the 7 holy rivers are purifying his body, and repeats his mantra, and he gets out of the shower and then goes to meditate. And he kind of converted a whole bunch of us to that kind of way of thinking. So something mundane like taking a shower. I know someone who never goes up any set of stairs without stopping at the bottom and repeating a mantra. So we go to the shrine, we do our usual meditation. We're going to skip talking about that. And then maybe it's time, what Swami Swahananda used to do when he came back from the shrine is it's good to have your holy pictures in your house. Now, it means pictures that mean something to you. Not because somebody else has a picture of somebody, but because they really mean something to you. Come back and visit everyone. So he would come back from the shrine and immediately go around to every holy picture in his room. And whatever he was saying, he was doing it to himself, couldn't hear him. We should have a habit like that. We can have a habit. We don't should anything. But my advice is, if we stop really seeing them, we should move them. In other words, we come into the house, we do this at Ridgely all the time. There's pictures of everybody everywhere. We don't even see them. If we don't see them, we need to move them so they're in a different place, like the retail stores do. That why are they always rearranging their stuff? Because they want the customers to think that something is different and new. So we can go to our work, whatever it may be. And again, maybe we have work in a cubicle, we can put some pictures up or whatever we want. We can have some little saying in the day. Oh, one thing that we can do is keep as much off our devices as we can, at least when we're doing our sadhana. But if we can't and we're addicted, or say we need it to wake ourselves up, our cell phones, we can set them to play bhajans. We can try not to be looking at apparently the average American looks at their cell phone something like once every, I can't remember, a humongous amount of time, like 80 times a day at least. I can't remember the exact figure. I read it somewhere and I was shocked. So, but we can make use, if we're gonna be on our phone, we can make use of our phone. That, first of all, we have to decide what is a distraction, right? So Gitaprana, watching too many weird videos on YouTube is a distraction. But there's so many classes, there's so much music, bhajans, whatever kind of spiritual music you like. It doesn't necessarily have to be Indian, classical music. There's every single spiritual tradition has so many wonderful teachings online. We can use it in that time. Also, I will say, there is a time where we can just do nothing. That sometimes spiritual aspirants become guilty if they feel like they're not at every moment doing some spiritual thing. But the thing is, the point for the mother, I guess we could say, is to be. Achievement doesn't come into it. That's like, especially in this culture, in American culture, achievement is everything. We got to achieve, 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 achieve. From school, from the point we go to school and our jobs. But spiritual life isn't about achieving. It's about a non-achievement. It's about just being, so that the divine that we already are begins to show through the surface layers of our mind. That it's not about attainment either, as I said. We don't attain anything. The first Swami I ever knew was Swami Swananda, not Swaha, in Berkeley. And that was the first teaching I ever heard. And it's one that has been most important to me my entire life. And this, I first met him when maybe I was like 20. I must have been talking about meditation or something. I don't even remember. And he said, you don't achieve anything through spiritual practice. Nothing. Because Brahman, the divine, the mother, is never a product of any action. And all these are actions, if we're making them actions. So you can't achieve that. And wipe that whole idea from your mind. That in Vedanta, whether you want to call it Shakta Vedanta or you want to call it Advaita Shankaras, the idea is you are already that. You, us, in all our forms, whether we're Ratna or Tapas or Raki or Swati, deliberately us. That the mother has deliberately taken the form as us in all our trials and tribulations and jubilations, and resides at the heart of our very consciousness is actually her. So all of our day, whatever we do, and this means we don't walk away. The Shaktas do not walk away. It is not typically a nivriti kind of spiritual practice, meaning a renunciation kind of spiritual practice. And very few Shaktas in India are sannyasis or even monks. They are almost all lay people, householders. Because of this, because this is a tradition that seeks to establish consciousness in the life that we have. So in our children, in our teenagers who may be a pain in the neck, in our sick children, in our children who are challenged, in our boss who may be really not very nice, in our cars that need fixing all the time. This is another thing that Shaktas often do, and everybody does. Deck out your car with murtis or some kind of photographs or whatever. But it has to be something that really makes a difference to you. There's no point in putting Ganesha in your car if you couldn't care less about Ganesha. And be kind of honest about it. That if you like better a picture of the sun or, Yosemite Falls or whatever it is, and that really speaks to the divine to you, those are your holy pictures. And sometimes they start losing their meaning and you find something else and put another one up. But again, offering our food, not in a formal way. We all know about that. But just in a way that acknowledges that the food is a product. It doesn't magically appear on our table. It's a product of so many, many different lives that put the food on our table and the forces of the universe that produce that food. And all of that is the mother. And we can just kind of quickly do that in our mind. We can have holy pictures by our computer. I do. Actually, to tell you the honest truth, I and Krishna Prana in Santa Barbara are the repository for everybody's broken deities. That I hate throwing them away, and people know that. And so consequently, my whole office is filled with everybody's cast-off deities. So if that's the kind of thing you like, go for it. If you don't like the murtis, if you don't like the forms, then that's more authentic for yourself. Your formal practice will be between you and your guru, your teacher, if you are initiated. But these are your daily life practices, because there's no point here in doing all these formal practices if we forget this stuff in our daily life. And we all know how difficult it is to remember. Let's see what else. We come along to our formal practices. There's a lot that could be said about that, especially in the Shakta view. But some people love puja, right? And they love to do the whole huge deal. And they love, I have some friends like this. They're almost like, even Western friends of mine are like reborn Brahmins. And they probably are. Just love puja and all its intricacies. And what Swami Vivekananda used to call bell-ringing religion. They love it, these Shakta people. On the other hand, I also have friends who detest it and think it's all just a bunch of low kind of spiritual practice stuff for the undeveloped. But in reality, the kind of worship we do should be practical for our lifestyle. And so, if we have a full-time job, we're not going to sit down and do 16-item worships every single day. It should be practical also that the level of clothes just for puja, shower just for puja, no eating, fasting, this, that, the other, is not necessarily possible in our daily life. So we can adopt another set as long as we don't compromise that. You know what I mean? That, okay, we say, for instance, I don't follow any of that stuff unless we're actually doing a real puja. That I'll just have my own standard, even at Ridgely, because I'm pretty busy at Ridgely. But I cannot compromise that standard. It's pretty low, but I can't go lower. So if you set a standard, keep it. Don't justify not doing it. This is the essence here. Let's see, I'm trying to think of some other things. You can think of them yourself. That how do you make the life that you have into a spiritual practice? Some people are musicians. Retna was reminding me that she used to sing that song. I mean, I was reminded when she was singing that she used to sing that song all the time when they lived in Hollywood. And my mind was sent back to that it was a long time ago. And thinking, some people love Swati, Retna, they love music. And so that could be just a wonderful spiritual practice. We don't have to be the greatest of greats. I remember once in Hollywood, Swami Swahananda, we used to get, for a long time, we had a lot of very trained, what were called kirtan singers. And they had groups, and they were going, when kirtan was at its heyday. And we were having them at all of our pujas. And they would come, and it was very nice. But in the meantime, in Hollywood, like at Ridgely, when we have a puja, just anyone who happens to be sitting there can sing if they want. And sometimes there would be very senior ladies with quavery voices that would sing a bhajan. And one time I happened to walk out of the temple right behind Swami Swahananda. And he turned around and said, I think I prefer the little old lady with a quavery voice and a lot of devotion to all these kirtan artists. Yes. So we should keep that in mind. We do it because it's meaningful to us, because it leads us to the source. And, if we like hard rock, and that is, everyone says, oh no, this is lower chakra music. If that leads to the divine for us, that's the kind of music that, if it puts our mind in that kind of plane, or that's the kind of thing that we should pursue. And the other thing is, as this world is changing constantly, we have to remember that our understanding will change automatically. That while we do have to put a rein, in the same way that the Yoga Sutras would say, on our addictions and our aversions and our fears, a lot of that will naturally begin to fall off, and we may not even notice it. That slowly, as we stick to our sadhana, as we try to spiritualize and see the divine and the mother in every moment, it means that we'll see less of me in that moment as we go on. Or we'll not take me as this kind of thing that's wrapped in plastic, that we'll understand that me is much more less, solid thing. And so trying to determine how far along we are in the spiritual path is a loser's game. That we should do it, this is my advice, we should do it for love. For the love of the divine, for the love of the mother, in our own way. And of course, it will be dry. Sometimes people are always saying, oh, I can't meditate. Oh, my spiritual life is so dry. But that means that we've got our mind boxed into a certain idea of what spiritual life should be. I have lots of friends who and I'm one of them, although I'm not a scientist at all, I just love where speculative theoretical physics is going right now. That beyond saying, for instance, that time and space, or time is not linear, or consciousness is primary. That where the physics is leading right now is to the edge of the mind and to the edge of what was ordinarily thought of as reality, and closer and closer to what the ancient Vedic people kind of perceive to be true. So that may be the way that you approach it. That may be your puja. I always tell people, because I love being in nature, and I have been since I was born. So do you know David Attenborough's, what do they call it, Planet Earth and Planet Earth 2? For me, that's like puja, watching that. That I actually do when I formal pujas. But for me, to see all those forms that the divine takes, that it's just incredible. Infinity is truly infinity. And Sri Ramakrishna said, Swami Vivekananda's mind was so wide that it could not be caught in the net of samsara. And this is what these kinds of sadhanas do. They push our mind away from me and my little kind of self and into that infinity. That is the mother expressing herself. Lastly, if you know puja and you know the puja of the mothers, the different ways of worship usually begin, at least once all the preliminaries are done, with what they call a meditation mantra, a dhyan shloka, and which will describe whichever deity you're worshiping. It will describe what they look like, what they're holding, and what their qualities are, right? We know this if we know anything about puja. Even the Sarada Devi, Sri Ramakrishna is the same, especially Sarada Devi more so than Sri Ramakrishna. But if you know, say for instance, the dhyana shlokas for Durga or Kali, you would be shocked, maybe, that they are fierce, really fierce. And let's say the Durga dhyana mantra, Chanda and Chandi and Prachanda and Ugra and Karala are all Sanskrit words that mean horrifying, fierce, terrifying. And they show up in Durga's mantra constantly, actually in an alliteration. So it's Chanda, Prachanda, Prachanda, and it goes like that. And Kali's mantra is just downright scary. So there's interpretations to all of it. But I once said something to Swami Swahananda. He and I used to argue. Eventually, at first, he was not so happy about Gitaprana and her Shakta stuff. But eventually,
He said,
I know.
You were one of his.
I know. But he came around, and finally one day I was saying something about one of these mothers, and he said, well, here's the gist of it. Oh, I was telling him, do you know what these dhyana mantras say? And he was saying, yes, they're all fierce. I asked him, why do all these deities, even Ganesha, when you get to their meditation mantras, they're all so fierce? And he said, well, who wants a namby-pamby mother? He used to say that all the time. You don't want a namby-pamby mother. And it's true on one level. And also, let's face it, this mother of the universe is nothing. I mean, she's not namby-pamby at all. If we look around us and see, oh my gosh, the incredible beauty and the incredible destruction. So I guess I'll stop there. There's a lot more that could be said, but you can't, this is such a huge topic that you can't bite it off in just little bitsies. The point here is this. In the tradition of the Divine Mother, she is you. She has deliberately become you. You are not just springing into samsara because of old samskaras, because of old kind of habits that are keeping us chained. That she has deliberately become us, you, everything, the world and everything in it. Deliberately. That means Swami Vivekananda used to told Sister Nivedita, I can't help but think that there is a power in the universe that thinks of itself as female. So this is a wonderful little one line to meditate upon. What does this mean? Power in the universe that even thinks of itself. Well, when it thinks of itself, we are here. That's whether we're female, male, or whatever, that it thinks of ourselves, that's what we are. We are her thinking of herself. So that's the gist of this sadhana. And then the point of it is, in this spiritual practice, we really, really, in addition to our traditional kinds of spiritual practices, we need to put it into the life that we have and not the life we wish we had. Because, of course, we wish to progress in our spiritual life. We might wish to become better people. That's not what I mean. I mean that here we are, the mother is being us, and we're tripping around, making a mess of everything. That's how it is. And so we just aspire and aspire, but it's right here now. This is where she perceives. And we, in a way, are her points of perception. And at the same time, she's not different from Brahman. There's only one consciousness that's infinite and undivided. And that's the sadhana of the Shaktas. That's the Divine Mother's worship. Do it in your heart, in your mind, in your own way, and understand that it's all her and she is one with Brahman. So thank you for listening. I don't know, I was rambling a little bit. That I didn't actually have too many notes. And maybe that was a little bit of hubris. So you have questions? Is that what comes next?
Yes.
You're going to give the mic to somebody? I think there's
Whoever has question.
Mataji, I have a very simple question actually. If we perceive ourselves as the way we are today as the mother, what is the pursuit of excellence in pursuit of purity and everything else that one should pursue actually? If we consider our status quo as a mother, and that's it.
Yeah, it's the same question that you could ask in Advaita Vedanta. If we are that, why do we need to do anything? But the human, anything, it's on a spiritual path or in anything in human life, there is a pursuit of excellence. And so we continue to do that, but without denigrating what we already are. That, because really, what we could say philosophically is, even though it's the mother appearing as many, at the same time, the goal is for the many to reunite with the one. And to do that, we have to move what we call forward. And so we do need to pursue. We can't just sit and say, well, you know, that's what they call Bhoga Advaita. That Bhoga means enjoyment, pleasure in this case. And so it's a term that often sadhus, I've heard it many times, give to people who say, yeah, well, you know, we are already that, so why should we pursue anything? But since we are separate, we still feel separated, right? And the Maya here is the sense of separation. So as long as we feel separate, we need to what we would call move forward and pursue that excellence. Otherwise, we're not going to do anything. And that will probably help.
May I make a comment?
Tapas wants to make a comment.
My comment is that, as Thakur has repeated it several times, that if we really think that we are the mother, the whole world will change to us.
Yeah.
We do not have to ask that question.
Yeah.
So the truth is that we never think that we are, and there's nothing wrong with that either. What to me, I'm trying to put it all together in my mind, and I could share with you what conclusion that I have come up to this. Majority of the problem that we have, both with Shaktas and Buddhists, that we are trying to explain our experience through phenomenological understanding. And there lies the problem. The moment you stay within the phenomenological explanation, you use your mind.
Yeah.
And you cannot use your mind to understand
Yep.
mother. You have to transcend it.
Absolutely.
So what we need to do is each of us have to find our own ways.
Yep.
And trying, and that once we try to do something, changes will come to us and it will take us to a better understanding, and then another step will happen. It does not happen in one day. Thank you.
Yes, and those changes may not necessarily be pleasurable. That's one mistake that we make, is that we feel that if we're making, and again, I have a Swami Swayananda story. Actually, a couple that in the same vein. I hope you don't mind. But one time, both times actually, now that I'm thinking about it, when I was in Hollywood, I used to serve on a committee called the Rental Committee. That the Hollywood Center owns a whole block of property, and many of them were rental properties. And being on the rental committee, as you can imagine, was a little bit of a headache. And it was even more of a headache because some of my fellow monastics were kind of difficult to work with. But not the lay people, but a couple of the monks. So the rental committee would often get into these kind of wrangles, and they were definitely for sadhana, let me tell you, especially if you're not very patient like I'm not. So I said one time to Swami Swayananda, stupidly, both times I'm telling you about, I talked before I really thought. And so I stupidly said to him, I think the rental committee is wrecking my life. So the one time he said, the first time I said that, I said, I think the rental committee is interfering with my life. He turned around within a nanosecond and said, you have no life. And I totally understood he got. I have a Garo cloth. I gave away my life.
Oh,
That,
that's beautiful.
but the second time I said to him, he turned around and he said, what? You think life, spiritual life, is all going to be happy? You think it's all going to be up and whatever? It's, he didn't say whatever, but it's not like that. Life is not like that. It has its ups, it has its downs, and likewise your spiritual life will follow that curve. So we shouldn't think that whatever sadhana we're practicing, whether we're devotion or the path of devotion or the path of jnana or whatever it is, that our path is going to be, that it might be sometime. Swami Prabhupada once told me a funny story that, and I think it happened to him, but he wouldn't say so. Yeah, I think it was his sister that was doing it. So he was in a temple in South India, and he said he was with a girl who was apparently feigning some kind of ecstatic bhakti. And he said, the way he said it is, she was waving her arms in the air and around, and he said, what are you doing? And she said to him, shut up, this is bhakti. So the point here is, these are all points on a path, and we will move forward, like Tapas was saying, like I was saying earlier. If we just take one step after the other in our spiritual life, the next step will not become super apparent to us, but it will definitely present itself to us, and we may be dragged into it kicking and screaming, or it may be that it's wonderful. But nevertheless, we move forward always, but seemingly moving backward sometimes. That honestly, I'll tell you, Ridgely has been one of my greatest sadhanas over and above all the Shakti stuff that I used to do when I was in the convent in Hollywood, including I made the Murtis for Kali Puja for about 4 years, and it was wonderful. But Ridgely is difficult. To be responsible for Ridgely is a huge challenge. And sometimes, gray hair. And but in the end,
chose you
yeah, I was just telling that this is what I remember about this sadhana of Ridgely, because for me, it's been a sadhana and still is. Whenever I think I could just go back to Hollywood, that I remember, and this was told to me by a Hollywood devotee. After I had come to Ridgely in 2004, she said to Swami Swahananda, "Why did you put her there? You know that's a difficult place." And he said, Gitaprana likes a challenge.
Yes.
And so whenever I think, why am I doing this? I remember that Swami Swahananda said that. And it's really meaningful to me that that it doesn't have much anything other than thinking, okay, I'll be up for this, whatever it is. And of course, it's Swamiji's place. So if you come there, that's the main point of Ridgely, is that it really belongs to Sri Ramakrishna, the mother, and Swami Vivekananda. And it's the place of Swami Vivekananda more than anything. And because I'm the one that kind of pulls the strings there, I don't always notice it, but a lot of people say it has a wonderful kind of atmosphere there that stems from that. Swami Shraddhananda, another from Sacramento, once told me, he was talking about the temple, but it could mean any holy place. It could mean here. It could mean any holy place, or even, well, anyway, he said, you have to remember, time is an illusion. It doesn't exist. When you come in, this is the attitude you should take in a holy place. Time is an illusion. It does not exist. And that means that all the devotees, all the holy people, all the saints, all the sages that have ever set foot in that place in the past or will ever set foot in that place in the future are here now. Whenever you set foot in a place in the temple, that should be your attitude. That you may not see them, you may not feel them, but honor the fact that they are all there or here or whatever. So anyway, I think it's time for whatever is your next, unless there's...
Anyone other questions? Anyone has questions? 5:30 is our Arati time, and thank you, Mataji, for the wonderful and animated discussions. We are so happy and so glad to have you. I would just say that after the Arati, there is a 10 minutes meditation when the lights are off. So kindly stay at your seat, and then there will be prasad to go. And if you want to speak with Mataji, we welcome you anytime after this in the lobby. If you have a few minutes.
A few minutes, we're hightailing it back to Ridgely to beat some thunderstorms.
Yes, so we will be running backwards. But Ridgely is a wonderful place. Please visit. It's about 2 hours from here.
Yeah, 2 hours.
We went to the Shraddhanandaji and Pravrajika Gitaprana, and you were quite a team.
Oh, sorry, Desha Prana.
Yeah.
Okay, so, all right, let's see what you have. Is there actually, it looks to me like you need a new wig.
Yeah, so that's how you. I'll give you.
Who is
I'm bringing it.
flowers? Okay, I see. Let me get my cheddar.
I'm open yesterday.
You got everything. Everything that's not there is in the font, and that's fine. We don't need it. We'll just stick
For
it-
the Jalasankha.
Yeah.
We have the.
Do you puja here every day?
No, well, Maharaj.
I mean, I didn't see it, maybe it's there. I see everything else. Well, with my luck, something will fall apart. At our Kali Pujas, the mother likes to play. So one year, the clapper fell out of the bell. So there's no putting it back when you're in the middle of the arches. You have to pretend like the bell is ringing. And last year, we usually do at Kali Puja, the big, with the conches and the gongs and everything. But there was no one to play the conch, so Bill wanted to do it. He doesn't know how. Chandi was there, Swati was there, and Bill was trying to play the conch, but it sounded like a dead cow. And pretty soon, the whole place was in hysterics, including me. And we had to finally stop because I tell him, stop, you've got to stop. Is that it, or is there more?
Flower is there.
Flowers are there.
Light is there.
Fan is there. Light is there.
And
Cloth is there.
That's it.
Ganga is there. What about those? Do you like those lights on the shrine?
Those are on.
Oh, okay. At Kali Puja also, the mother, we were doing home fire, and all of a sudden in the chimney, there was this huge crash, and something went flying down into the fire. And it was that the damper on the chimney had broken, shut, and pretty soon all the smoke is coming into the room. So
Really?
I had to put it out. It was in the casino, and I had to put it out. And so that it wouldn't call the fire department because we have all these smoke, fancy. And so we put the home fire out, and then I said to the people who were there,
The Bhutu has
I've
come.
never had to put a home fire out in the middle. What should I do? And they said, act as if it's still going. And I thought, okay, we'll do that. Ready? What is this for?
This
This-
is for
the-
adding
The
to
Shankar.
we put Ganga Jal there.
Okay.
This is
All right. So I think we have everything now.
Yes.
All right, Jenna.
Light, and please tell us when to start the Aarati. It's
Well, when
about
I stand
18
up.
18 minutes, yes.
Oh, okay.
We have the Belur Mat 17.
All right. Does that mean that I have to keep going through that whole?
No,
18
I
minutes?
think you finish and you just sit down,
Okay.
and then the Sarada Mass would
Okay.
that.
All right.
And only today, 13th was Ramakrishnananda,
Mhm.
so we do.
Yeah. Here is, okay, so use the donga for washing hands.
That's a water for. And then bamboo.
Oh, here, okay. I'm not gonna use, I'm not doing puja. Oh, I'll use this though. I guess I have to.
Krishna जी की जय, जय महामाई की जय, जय स्वामी जी महाराज जी